the Community Church of Chapel Hill, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Don Katahdin, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry. I especially want to welcome any guests or newcomers with us this morning and call your attention to the back of the order of service where it says, "Welcome guests and newcomers." I would also like to welcome those of you attending online. Lyrics to hymns and all the elements of the service may be found on the live stream screen, and a complete order of service, including this week's announcements, is available via the link in the Sunday morning email and on the church website. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. The in-person Sunday social is held immediately following this service. Please turn off or silence any cell phones that we might have a more worshipful experience. This morning, our Share the Plate donations benefit school backpacks. I invite Terry Brooks to give us more details.
Good morning. My name is Terry Brooks, and I am coordinating the school supplies project, which is part of our community services ministry. And our church has participated in this for about 20 years. In 2020, 60% of families in North Carolina reported difficulty paying for normal household expenses. This includes food, rent, utilities. We've all had to deal with inflation over the last year. Many of us have been able to adjust our budgets and make changes that allowed us to cope pretty readily. But for the 3,900 children in Carrboro, Chapel Hill, and Chatham County, school supplies may have been the last thing on their budget. Once our packs are filled, they go to two places: Hargrave Center for an annual backpack giveaway on August 19th, and Chatham County School social workers who distribute them as needed. Your donations to today's Share the Plate will allow us to purchase backpacks and fill them with the requested supplies. Last year, our church raised over $1,800. This translated to almost 150 packs. This year, with inflation, I am targeting 75 to 90 filled packs. I just also want to note that these donations benefit the teachers in our community as well. Data shows teachers spend hundreds of dollars of their own money on school supplies every year. Fewer unequipped students will help them focus on teaching. I will be tabling in the Jones Building after the service if you want to ask me any questions, and I want to thank you for your generosity today. Helping students get a good start in the school year is important for our society to work.
Now please stand in body or spirit for our opening hymn, "When Our Heart is in a Holy Place." It's in the Teal Hymnal, page 1008.
When we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are and the God of our hearts is within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Good morning. It's great to be back up here. For the past 5 weeks, I've gotten a little break from preaching, but I've been attending services from the pews in the back. And I want to thank our 5 preachers who stepped into the pulpit the last 5 Sundays. So thank you to Eric Bannon, Reverend Allison Eskildson, Sarah Clark Farnell, Reverend Dr. Rebecca Todd Peters, and Krista Westerfeld. They took us to church, right? This place has been jumping on Sunday mornings. I thought Unitarian churches are supposed to be really sleepy in the summertime or something. But so next week I'm going to be out of the pulpit one last Sunday this summer, and we're going to have a member of our church, Matt Zeman, speaking, and I'm really looking forward to hearing him. I hope you are too. And then starting August 6th, I'll be back with my regular preaching schedule. Our invitation into worship this morning is by Rebecca Parker, Reverend Rebecca Parker, who was the president of Star King School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. She writes, "Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking or listening or imagining or seeing or waiting, any of these can serve to feed the hungry, to bind up wounds, to welcome the stranger, to praise what is sacred, to do the work of justice or offer love. And any of these can draw down the prison door, can hoard bread, can abandon the needy, can obscure what is holy, can comply with injustice or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Come, let us worship together. And Don, won't you lead us in the words for our chalice lighting?
You'd be willing to light the chalice.
Don't worry.
You will find the words for our chalice lighting in your order of service. Please join me in saying them if you wish to do so. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
Each week in our service, we hold a time for sharing the joys and the sorrows that we bring with us in to this beloved community. It's during this time, if you've come with either a significant personal joy or a significant sorrow, that you're invited to come forward, place a stone in the bowl, share in a couple of sentences your joy or your sorrow. And I'm going to place the first one this morning, and then I invite those with joys and sorrows to come forward. I'm placing the first stone this morning for the Mediterranean Deli on Franklin Street. If you did not hear yesterday, a major fire gutted it. Mediterranean Deli is more than a favorite restaurant. It's a community center, and the owner Jamil and his staff and family have been really embedded in the Chapel Hill community for decades and decades. So I want us to hold that community institution in our hearts this morning. Are there any other joys and sorrows to share?
Hi, I'm Joelle Bourgeline, and I have a great sorrow. We had to put our 20-year-old cat to sleep this week. And so I've had him for 17 years, so he's been my baby. My son Elijah said he wanted to be there for the procedure. And, sometimes as parents, we're like, we want to shield our kids from, great sorrows. And so we went through it. And I guess this was a learning experience for me in my own grief. I was a mess, crying, and he comforted me. I suddenly felt this little hand on my back. He gave me the biggest hug, and so we got through it together. It was a moment of growth. So please hold us in your hearts. Thank you.
I'm Hap Kingdom. I have a sorrow for my brother Chris, who recently passed away in Seattle after more than 10 years of struggling with multiple system atrophy. He endured. He was incredible in terms of his athleticism, and it was very sad to see him deteriorate over that time, but he did it with great dignity.
My name is Genevieve McGuffin, and I have kind of a mix of joy and sorrow. We've been here a year from California, and this is the place where we're putting down roots. We're happy about that. That's our joy. Our sorrow is we made plans when we first moved here to go back to California and see our family and friends of 50 to 60 years. That's our joy mixed with our sorrow being gone from our North Carolina new home. So I'm sure everything will work out the way it's supposed to. It's just 6 weeks.
Hi, I'm Martha Brown. It's a joy for me to be here today. I've been mostly virtual since COVID, and I ran into Reverend Thom this week, and I said, I've been thinking about it. I need to get back to church. And so, thank you. My joy is for my sister and her husband, Rich. They are in Vietnam. His grandson got married in a traditional Vietnamese ceremony to his bride yesterday morning. Well, it was actually this morning, but 12 hours later. Anyway, that's for their joyful life together.
And I'm going to place one final stone for all the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts that were not spoken. I invite you to join with me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of our being and our becoming, we hold in our hearts the struggles and the sadnesses of this congregation and this community. We mourn the passing of family members, friends, beloved animal companions. We celebrate the comings and goings, the venturing forth and returning. On this morning, we hold in our hearts our discernment as moral creatures. Help us to have better awareness of our living, of our place in community and in society. Help us to live courageously, and help us to forgive ourselves and each other. For all these things, as well as for the prayers within our own hearts, our longings, our struggles, and our love, we hold a time of silence together. I invite you to be still with me. Amen. I invite you to turn your gray hymnal to number 123, Spirit of Life. We're actually going to sing this, I think, standing up today. So please, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit. And we're going to sing it. Through twice. So since it's a short one, we will sing it through twice this morning. Won't you join us in Spirit of Life?
Come unto me, sing.
The readings this morning are a pair of poems, and the second one is going to be by Mary Oliver, the American poet. And the first one, and Don's going to read that one, the first one is by a Polish poet Wisława Szymborska, and she won the 1996 Nobel Prize in Literature for her body of poetry. And I'm going to read one of hers, which is called "In Praise of Feeling Bad About Yourself." The buzzard never says it is to blame. The panther wouldn't know what scruples mean. When the piranha strikes, it feels no shame. And if snakes had hands, they'd claim their hands were clean. A jackal doesn't understand remorse. Lions and lice don't waver in their course. Why should they, when they know they're right? Though the hearts of killer whales weigh a ton, in every other way they're light. On this third planet from the sun, among the signs of bestiality, a clear conscience is number one.
This is the one by Mary Oliver. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Freely have we received gifts that minister to our needs of the body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. If you wish to donate online, there is a QR code on the back of the order of service, and there is information on the church's website. Today, our generosity extends beyond our walls as we give to today's Share the Plate. Remember that you can donate online, or if you are writing a check to school backpacks, please write STP in the memo line. We will now receive the morning offering.
I want to share with you the plot of one of my favorite novels of all time. The novel is a book called How to Be Good, which was the third novel written by British author Nick Hornby. I'm a huge fan of his. I think I've read all his books. And the main characters in How to Be Good are Katie and David, a married heterosexual couple living in London. First, Katie. Katie, the wife, thinks of herself as a good person. She's a medical doctor in general practice, and so she spends her working days doing good by bringing healing to the world. Katie volunteers and gives to charity. She's kind, compassionate, and patient. Now, David, Katie's husband, is the opposite. David is not good. He is rude, impatient, selfish, intolerant, ill-tempered, and self-centered. His sole contribution to the world, if you can even call it that, is a newspaper column he writes once a week, and the column is called The Angriest Man in London. And it's filled with his rantings and ravings about all the things that make him angry in his neighborhood. One day, David runs into an odd and unusual man on a street corner. The man goes by the name DJ Good News. And DJ Good News is sort of a street preacher / faith healer espousing some vague and mysterious spiritual ideas. And something happens. With the help of DJ Good News, or rather falling under a trance of DJ Good News, David instantaneously undergoes a magical transformation, a spiritual conversion. In the blink of an eye, David goes from rude to perfectly kind, from intolerant to perfectly understanding, from impatient to perfectly patient, from angry to possessing a state of radiant inner peace, and from self-centered to selfless. David becomes good. He becomes very, very, very good. And things change at home. Some things change for the better as David becomes helpful and considerate and enlightened. But other things change at home as well. David starts going out into the streets and giving away fistfuls of money to strangers. He invites people without enough to eat to come eat with his family at their dining room table each night. He sells his children's video games and gives the money to charity. And he invites DJ Good News to live in the family's living room. David is more than good. He is a saint, and that sainthood bumps up in all sorts of complicated ways with notions of what a normal life is supposed to look like. Katie, meanwhile, is unsettled by her husband's conversion. She had long defined herself as being good, and she had defined herself as being good in contrast with her husband being bad. She finds herself, with this new husband, noticing her own impatience, anger, frustration. She resents her husband's selfless generosity and wonders if that makes her selfish. And most of all, she becomes deeply uncertain of her own goodness. This is all deeply unsettling. I love this novel so much. It raises these fascinating questions. What does it mean to be good? How good should we strive to be? When are we ever good enough? Or how about this question? To what degree is our concept of goodness shaped by and beholden to our culture, our society, our socioeconomic status? What do we do when our sense of goodness means breaking away from cultural norms? And one more question: is the life of sainthood compatible with living within a society? That's a question I struggle with personally. Just kidding. Just kidding on that one. So here we are in church, right? And one of the beautiful things about church is that it is an earnest place, a deeply earnest place. This isn't a place we go to become more cynical. This is a place we go to believe in life and in ourselves and believe that a better world and even a better self is possible. We come here with a desire to do good and a desire to be good. I mean, how many of us find it important to think of ourselves as good people, right? Now, here's the thing. You're not coming to try to earn some seal of approval from the minister or from the church, some external pronouncement that you're good. Goodness, no. That's not something I can do. But I think we do have an inner longing to be good human beings. Whether that's being a good partner, or a good parent, or a good friend, a good member of this community, or a good member of the wider community. To be a good citizen, to be good to our planet, and even at times to be a good troublemaker, to paraphrase John Lewis. We've got this longing to do good, right? To help, to heal, to console, to support, to mentor, to create beauty, to volunteer, to serve. We have a longing to do good by feeding the hungry and housing the unhoused, welcoming the stranger, caring for the sick, working for peace and justice, blessing the world. Everyone with me so far? Right? Right? Okay. But here's the rub. A part of being human is having a desire to be and to do good, but also realizing that we will never, ever succeed in being perfectly good, because there is no such thing as perfection. This is the curse and the gift of being human. 5 years before Nick Hornby wrote How to Be Good, Rabbi Harold Kushner wrote a slim volume entitled How Good Do We Have to Be? Published in 1996, the same year that the poet Wisława Szymborska was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, Rabbi Kushner wrote, quote, "Human life is infinitely more complicated than animal life because we are alert to the moral dimensions of the choices we make, and the more authentically human we are, the more complicated our lives become." He writes that the essence of being human is conscience, awareness of good and bad. What makes us most human is the ability to inquire about the moral dimensions of our actions, our choices, our lives. Or, in the words of the poet, on this third planet from the sun, of all the signs of animalism, a clear conscience is number one. According to Rabbi Kushner, when we do something wrong because we are human and our choices are so complicated and temptations so strong, we don't lose our humanity. Being human can never mean being perfect, but it should always mean struggling to be as good as we can and never letting our failures be a reason for giving up that struggle. For the service this morning, I chose for the reading 2 poems to put in conversation, in tension. Szymborska playfully declares that it is our conscience, our sense of right and wrong, that sets us humans apart from the rest of the world. And Mary Oliver writes about giving all the demands and stresses of being human a rest and reconnecting with our animal nature. You do not have to be good. Her poem Wild Geese, by the way, can be found in our hymnal. It's sacred writ for us. Number 490, if you're getting bored with the sermon and you want to go find it and read it again. That's how much Unitarian Universalists love this poem. We included it in our hymnal. There is, I think, no poem read more often in Unitarian Universalist congregations than Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. And I think that what draws us to this poem is that her poem calms the hyperactive conscience. The part of us that is full of worries and doubts, the part of us that wonders, am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Am I enough? The constant struggle to be better than we are, the constant struggle to be as good as we can possibly be. No, Mary Oliver says, let go of that. You do not have to be good. Whew. Mike picked that up there. What a relief, right? But here's the thing, I don't find that first line of Mary Oliver's poem to be satisfying. You do not have to be good. Isn't that something a psychopath would say? So when I first, a little aside story, when I first moved to North Carolina, my daughter was 2, and I used to drive her to preschool in the morning, and I have a rule in my car, which is my car, my music. Because no way am I going to play children's music. That's like, start for a bad day. And because I have great taste in music. And I'm really doing my child and others a favor by playing good music, right? So right after we moved to town, this amazing punk rock band called Japandroids, I've got great taste in music, released a new album, and we would listen to it on the way to preschool. And there was a song on the album where the chorus ends with the refrain, I used to be good, but now I'm bad. And I used to be good, but now I'm bad. And one day, my 2-year-old is listening to the lyrics, and there's no moment where you can pay attention to the lyrics of a song, and she hears the refrain and goes like this. It was like this moment of startling realization that a person can choose to be bad, right? That that's a choice we have. You do not have to be good. That's true. You can choose to hurt other beings and behave in destructive ways and spoil beauty. There's nothing stopping any of us. There's nothing stopping any of us from being complete jerks to each other. Except, of course, our conscience. So how good do we have to be? How do we resolve our relentless conscience, compelling us always to be better, with our human condition that tells us we will always be fallible and imperfect? I'm not sure I have the answer to that question, or if there is even an answer to that question. I think it's part of the human condition that we're stuck with that struggle. And so instead of attempting to answer it, I would like you to consider the camel. You were all wondering if I was going to mention the camel. There's a famous and challenging passage in the Gospels involving a camel. In the story, a young man comes to Jesus and asks him what he must do to have eternal life. And Jesus responds to this young man that he should keep the 10 Commandments. And the young person is not satisfied by that response. He responds, I already do that, but is that enough? Don't I have to be better than that? And Jesus responds to him this way. Jesus said to him, if you wish to be perfect, go, sell your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. When the young man heard this word, he went away grieving, for he had many possessions. Then Jesus turned to his disciples and said, truly, I tell you, it will be hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, I tell you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. I want to say a few things about this passage. First, it is a challenging passage. I don't want to go too deep, and whether it's right or wrong is not what I'm going to get into today. I don't want to go too deep into the weeds of the history of biblical interpretation, except to tell you that for generations and generations and generations of Christian thinkers who take the Bible seriously, they've struggled with how to actually interpret this passage and often attempted to interpret the passage as not actually meaning what it means. Oh, that's not really what it means, they said. It means something else, but then it actually doesn't mean the things that they mean it to say. For example, I've got a little bit of time here. I'll tell, is this interesting to you all? So for example, there became this theory around, around the Middle Ages or so, that really what this passage was referring to, that the eye of the needle is not an actual needle, but rather in the gates of the city, there's the main gate that's open during the day, and then there's the smaller passage that's open during the night, and the smaller for safety, so that people can't, come into the city at night. And it's that smaller passage which the people of Jerusalem referred to as the eye of the needle, and that's what it actually means. Except the archaeological record shows that there's actually no smaller gate in any of the cities of those times, and there's no record of anybody actually referring to that as the eye of the needle. Another example is that at some point around the Middle Ages, I believe, as well, people began to think, oh no, it's actually a mistranslation, that the word for camel and the word for like a strong yarn, like a coarse yarn, the word for camel and coarse yarn is actually very, very similar. And so really they weren't talking about camels, they were talking about putting a yarn through a needle, and that's possible. And that's not supported etymologically either by the history. So people have really tried to work their way around this. And I prefer not to worry about it, but instead to interpret the passage in a more existential way. Because isn't the young man who comes in asking questions like, am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Am I enough? Aren't those very, very, very human questions? And then he gets the response, which doesn't let him off the hook. The response is not, oh yes, you're okay, but the response is, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for any of us to lead an ethically righteous, morally perfect, blameless, faultless, saintly, all good, all the time life. The point of the response, I think, is that it's impossible for the camel to pass through an eye of a needle. That's not possible. And that's the point. That I am the camel and you are the camel and we're all camels. And we're going to try and try and try and try and still not get it right. To badly paraphrase Rabbi Kushner, I am sorry. Being a camel can never mean being perfect, but it should always mean struggling to be as good as we can. Never letting our failures be a reason for giving up that struggle. Hopefully we'll never be David the misanthrope, the angriest man in London. Thank goodness for that. We'll also never be David the saint. Thank goodness for that. We will be Katie somewhere in the middle. Thank goodness for that. And if you ever worry that you are not fitting through the eye of the needle, just remember that camels and human beings merely mortal cannot do that. Amen. Blessed be. Our closing song this morning is number 348, Guide My Feet, and I'd like to invite you to rise in body or in spirit and sing out.
words for extinguishing the chalice are in your order of service. Please join me if you wish to do so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Let's thank all of those who made this service worshipful. Religious education might still be in session, so please remain in the Commons or Cass Courtyard until the regular service ending time. And now please join us for singing Shalom. The words are in your order of service. As you are comfortable, please hold hands with the person next to you or cross your arms over your heart.